please welcome on the stage Agnieszka Kosowicz, the president of the board of Polish Migration Forum. Welcome, Magda. We have Jen's back, Jen Carter, that you met already, the head of technology at google.org. We've got Jacek Siadkowski, the founder and managing director of Tech to the Rescue. And very soon we will be welcomed by Professor Witold Klaus, who is a law professor and the head of the department in criminology at the Center of Migration Law Research. So he's coming. You've been here, coming here, so you know how the traffic is bad today. Welcome. So I promise, as we agreed, we will be having only difficult questions, right? When you reflect on specifically on technology and the role of technology over the last 100+ days, where do you think it was best in helping, and where do you think it really actually failed in helping? Who wants to go first?
I guess it might be me as well.
Tech to the rescue, rescue the first.
Tech to the rescue. So welcome everyone. My name is Jacek. I'm one of the founders of Tech to the Rescue. And as an organization, we're building a platform to connect great tech companies with great nonprofits to unlock technology resources to solve world's problems faster and more effectively. And here we have a Tech for Ukraine conference, and I'm very proud of it because I remember the day, like it was February 22nd, when we built the first website starting the Tech for Ukraine movement. And I remember I typed Tech for Ukraine hashtag to its header, and I think we were happy to start this fantastic movement. So we've observed many projects. Since the war started, we matched over 80 projects for Ukraine, and I think the best thing we've done, and this wouldn't have happened without the technology, is how effectively we coordinate activities in terms of how effectively information spread across the world in terms of what is the status of the war, refugees, what they need, and how do we serve them with crucial information and services like how to get a visa, or how to orient themselves in a new country, or how easy it is crossing the border to find, an apartment in a city which is 500 kilometers away. So I think technology bridges the distance, bridges the information gap, and we don't always need a very sophisticated technology to do it. Sometimes it's enough to use a spreadsheet or simple website to connect people. And like it's difficult to me to understand like how the situation would be worse if we did not have the internet to connect people, information, and great hearts that want to help.
Okay, Jen, you want to go next?
Yeah, it's actually in line a little bit with what I was thinking about first. I think really challenging to pinpoint just one, but I think the trend is that technology is extremely helpful for making information more accessible and useful. Obviously, as Google, a little biased in that framing, but it really, technology is necessary to create and deliver accurate information and timely information and accessible information. And so across a wide range of uses, it really does seem like one of the ways where tech has been most useful. Just to name a couple, the Android team at Google was working on sending air raid alerts to folks' phones, and providing that information as quickly and accessibly as possible was critical. Or IRC, who you'll hear from later today, and United for Ukraine, helping people find accommodations similar to what Jacek mentioned. So a wide range of uses, but sort of anything that involves making information more accessible and useful seems to be an area where tech is both helpful and potentially can save lives.
Okay, but what is the area where you think we could do better as technology in this crisis?
I think there are a lot of places where technology is not doing so well. I would say the first that come to mind for me I would say a lot of tech that is created during a crisis is not created in a way that's going to last. And that makes sense. You have to prioritize sort of the urgent needs, but it's suboptimal. It's I think there are some challenges there. I think a related issue during a crisis with technology is that it is sometimes there's a lot of duplication of efforts. I know as well, Jacek, you all worked on some efforts there to connect folks in different organizations that were kind of rebuilding, reinventing the wheel. So I think that's another challenge that, again, it makes sense. Folks have to move quickly, but is not necessarily the most efficient. And then maybe one more I'll highlight that I see a lot is when tech becomes the goal, the solution, as opposed to tech enabling the goal and tech supporting a different goal. So, we're going to talk about a lot of platforms today, and the folks, who are working on these are doing incredible work there. But a platform that connects people to accommodations is only as useful as there exist accommodations to match people to. And so I think when I see tech fail, and again, not the examples you're going to hear about today, but is when folks get so focused on the tech solution, maybe it's the best user experience, but that user experience ultimately isn't helpful if you don't think about that entire pipeline and that end goal.
Thank you. Agnieszka, best and worst tech experience.
I think the weak element is myself, actually, because kind of seeing of what you are talking about, my main reflection is these last 3 months were a very intense learning process for the NGOs that are not used to tech solutions. And very often our experience or our standard of work was really handmade. And this is, in fact, a shift from kind of, Bronze Age to next level, because for us, we just have to quickly learn what is there. For me, the main challenge was, even in context with Google, when you ask us what we want or what are our needs, I don't have the imagination what's there. And for me, the challenge was to quickly learn or have your level of understanding of technology to be able to use it in a meaningful way. So yes, we did have this first reflection that we need tech for communication or for passing on information. But then, for example, with time, we discovered how useful technology is for being a reliable partner for others, and how technology is important in making sure that we are professional and that we can, for example, count who we help, how we help, and be able to report on what we are doing. And I guess that this understanding of how technology can be useful, work, it can be useful, have the imagination, what solutions are there? This is something that we are still learning. I still often face questions that I have no idea how to answer, and I don't know what are the solutions. Sometimes I really feel like, in NASA a little bit, because I don't have the knowledge to know what is doable. So sometimes it's hard to have reasonable requests.
Sure, but building on Jen, what was saying, the technology is not the goal. As a leader of an organization, you don't have to know what technology to adopt. You know what is the problem you're trying to solve and how technology can help you in that. But I think the important point you're touching is this, how the leaders of the NGOs have accelerated their digital knowledge so that they understand what technology can do for you. So thank you for mentioning that point.
And it's not only a knowledge, so it's also an imagination.
Okay.
I mean, what that it is possible, or that could be possible to do that. But it's not only an NGOs; it's also on the level of international organizations, on the governments. This crisis is, as far as I know, the first that technology invested so much in it, and it's great. But it's something very, very, very much new. So most of big international organizations don't know how to work with you, and that's why, for example, in my opinion, your experience is lacking in this area. So for me, I mean, the lesson learned would be that big tech pledge that they will be present not only in this crisis but in the future crises, so that you could learn how to cooperate with with UNHCR or other UN agencies and the European Union and some governments also. That you are there, you could help. I mean, they could ask you for some assistance, and then also we could create some products that could last longer, as we said, some that are replicable in other places. I mean, some will be, some won't. Like this connection between house lords or house owners and refugees. I mean, it's kind of unique what we have now in Poland, but maybe in some other places that there may be some other areas that similar in the could be
like
applicable.
you've all been building on your experiences from previous crises all around the world, right? So it's like time to also give back to the overall global NGO community to share.
Not only NGO, I mean international organizations.
You're right, because
also,
I remember when we met here, when our CEO was visiting, you were pointing out to the importance of not only connecting the dots between the NGOs so that they collaborate, but also between the government, local governments, all sorts of organizations that are trying to help. A couple of months later, do you think we managed to be better at that? I know you had this idea of creating a portal that connects the local governments with the NGOs and with the needs. Has this advanced in any way?
I mean, we're still developing it. I mean, we think how to approach this problem in the best way, the most efficient. Everything is changing very fastly, so we try to catch up on those changes. And I mean, from my experience, you're doing great. I mean, but it's my personal experience. I mean, how the cooperation and the communication between us is going, and that you are listening and learning, and that we could create something together. It's something very important to me, but also I think to the solution that we could propose. And I mean, if you could ask one more, I mean, what the uniqueness of the situation and the first, I mean, not the first, but the beginning of your investment. I mean, you're not as big tech in general, is there also an opportunity to evaluate the work? I mean, on a constant basis. I mean, is the solution that you propose are met the experience, but also it needs some reflexivity. I mean, is it something that is needed? Is it something, so not only, I mean, is this project fits the needs or fits the goals, but also is the way it's in general, this type of project are the projects that we should be involved with or maybe there was something else that we should do, not only instead, but also ahead of.
So if I recap the first round, I'm taking down things like, let's remember technology is not the goal, but it's actually a mean to do that. Technology has been under an exam, let me put it this way, in this war, and I think we are passing it, but we can get a better mark still, and thinking strategically about solutions, not just short-term executionally. Now, let me shift back to what the general public thinks and knows and don't know. And I would have a question to Agnieszka. Like, what would you like the general public to know that what's coming? What should we expect? What is around the corner that we may not be aware of just looking at the data, looking at the news and seeing, some data that the journalism makes available?
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I would like the public to sober up. And I think that what I would like the people to recognize is that there is hardship ahead, there are difficulties, there are practical challenges, and that our standard of life, or quality of life will change, no doubt. And somehow to become resilient to these difficulties that come by knowing or by pure awareness that they are coming. I think that we are now in a moment where in Poland, probably this is the case, that we are all really drunk with our own hospitality, that we are, intoxicated with how extremely helpful and welcoming we are. And this is coming to an end really sharply, very shortly. And I think that there is a danger in this, that we will lose this self-confidence or some kind of, I don't know, being proud of ourselves. And what I would like the people to be aware of more is that we have done incredible things. And I mean, nobody's going to take it away, but there are hardships ahead. And our current approach is not sufficient. And we need new approaches and new ways. And things will have to systematically change in order to address the reality that is coming. So probably this is not this kind of super positive remark or vision, but I just think it's realistic. And with, for example, 500 kids that are to join Polish educational system, or remarks of the city of Warsaw that they need 75 new schools by September. Well, we will not have 75 schools by September. And now what we do? Maybe this is where technology comes in. I mean, we talk a lot about, how you call it, online education, right? Remote education, online education. The online education, we know even from COVID, will not be sufficient. This will not be a response. We have to come up with something new. And I think that what we have to really sensibly do is watch the reality as it is, and acknowledge the difficult things that come ahead, and start to seek for solutions, and not pretend that we are good enough to handle everything, and kind of, expect people to take more and more on their shoulders and just continue the way it is. It is not doable. It will not happen. I think that this shift that we are talking about, and this is actually my lessons from your environment, is that you just have to switch to a new level. You have to think differently. You have to be innovative. It's not anymore a luxury or a thing for...
It's an imperative.
Yes, I mean, it has to be a widespread approach to reality, because it is changing completely, and we have to think differently completely. And I don't know how to make people aware of this, but it's... I think that this is basically our primary need right now.
Jacek, are you seeing these new challenges coming in into the projects you are looking at Tech to the Rescue, this shift, or is it still like you're building for scale for the most proven solutions? How is it looking from your point of view?
Obviously, the answer is yes and no. There are organizations that are forward-thinking. So, for example, we work with the Ukrainian Ministry of Education to overcome the gap of destroyed school facilities. So we are trying to build a solution for helping teachers to use online learning. So this is, I think, pretty much forward-thinking approach. But in general, I think, like, maybe I don't see everything, but I'm afraid that we don't work together enough. I believe that in order to be able to solve these upcoming challenges, which are society-wide, we need to build alliances. We need to cooperate. We need to use technology wisely to make the flow of information and services faster and more scalable. But it's not enough, like just the technology. So we need to build partnerships that are focused around, some kind of vector leaders. So, for example, we should have a leader in terms of online education, collaborating with smaller local organizations, solve the problem on a society level. But I don't see this conversation happening, and this is the problem. And I don't see, I think people are still very much focused on, I'm also speaking about Tech to the Rescue. We are trying to scale up our organization because we grew from 2 people to 20. So it's internal challenge. and we don't have enough time and space and this thought leadership, but also other organizations as well, to discuss these challenges together and find common strategies to face with them together.
So you're touching upon let's collaborate more. And I remember this was the point you were making at the Impact conference, like don't compete, and DR NGOs don't compete with each other, collaborate with each other. But you're also making the point of we need to find time to stop and kind of plan ahead, right? Because currently it's all in rush.
Yeah, and this is multidimensional, because there should be someone who would define these problems, share the data with the public, so that every organization which is here in this room would be on the same page. There should be someone leading the conversation between organizations of, okay, we have these resources, how we might use them in an optimal way to solve the problem as much as possible. And there needs to be an execution plan, fueled by technology. So, like, if I could name one thing that would be great to have as an output from this great conference, it's an initiative to actually discuss these matters together.
Thank you. Jan, you're representing Google.org, which is the org that makes us all proud, because you're doing amazing things with the funding that you're allocating. Can you tell us a little bit more how you actually look at the .org challenges, where you allocate the money, how you approach the Ukrainian crisis? Because we've seen the help coming in waves, right? And with the latest one being the educational efforts for Ukraine. So if you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we try to think about sort of multifaceted support, so providing not just funding, but also our products and technology, and also our people. And there's both Google.org, but even I think you've heard a little bit about some of the things Google is providing. So I think that's one of the ways that we approach it, is just thinking about what can we bring uniquely as Google, and that might be the campus space, or that might be Android alerts and the ability to reach people with phones in their pockets, or it might be our engineering talent. And so we just try to think about what Google can uniquely provide and work with nonprofits on that. I think another thing that we look at is creating some of these coalitions, even just bringing folks together today so we can have these conversations. But I think there is so much power and potential in cross-sector collaborations, where nonprofits are bringing the deep sector, issue area expertise, and the tech companies obviously can provide some insight into what's possible, what's technically feasible, and there's just so much potential in those collaborations. So, but otherwise, in terms of our response efforts, we both look at the immediate need, but also trying to look future facing. What are the economic impacts that we can be thinking about? So both the immediate relief, but also all of the long-term recovery efforts.
And you've been working at Google.org over 6 years now, right? How is this crisis different to the other ones that you've experienced over the last 6 years, through the lenses of Google.org?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say we're very cognizant of the significance of this war, not only for the people of Ukraine, but also for geopolitically and everything. So I think one thing that's just unique is that we want to ensure our response is commensurate with the crisis. And so what that's meant for us, again, even more broadly at Google, is sort of making sure we're being really thoughtful and reevaluating our approach to crisis, not just doing things how we've always done them, but really taking a look at how can we be most helpful, whether that is our space or whatever else. And so not just doing things the way that we've always done them, but trying to provide an adequate or commensurate response. On Google.org in particular, just to give one small example of that, we typically do around 10 fellowships each year, and that's globally, and that's across every issue area that we work on. So education, economic opportunity, inclusion, climate, and of course, crisis response. So usually about 10 total every year. And we're doing one currently with Tech to the Rescue, another one with IRC. You'll hear a bit about those, so I won't share too much more. But we actually just on Monday on World Refugee Day announced that we're doing a third fellowship with Needs List, again, to solve some of these longer term challenges to build technology that can last. So we're working with them to build a free open source version of their platform that helps connect services and goods, because that's always going to be a need in crisis. And one of the greatest challenges that we've heard from nonprofits is the inefficiency there. Something like 60 to 80% of funding in the aid sector goes towards some of this coordination efforts. And so we're trying to, think about both the short term, the acute needs, but also really that long term. And again, just sort of the summary there is just that we're looking at this crisis newly and uniquely and trying to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support.
So we are all smarter by 120 days. If you were to do it again, everything what you've done around the war in Ukraine and the humanitarian crisis response, what would you not do, or what you would do completely different than what you and your organization has done? Witek.
Oh, it's truly, I don't know yet. I think it's again. I mean, the time for reflexivity is needed for any of us, and I don't think we had this time yet, and the luxury of this time to really think what in which areas we failed or we could approach differently. So I can't say we could do something completely differently. I think what we've done in such a short notice in hurry was pretty okay. Let's say maybe not amazing, but pretty well. The alliances that we made, the coalitions, the response that we provide. Of course, there should be better coordination for that, but it's easy to say, but it's not easy at all to implement it, because it needs a lot of actors who agree that some actions should be coordinated, and there is a competition between different actors for different ways. I mean, between government and non-profit sector, in different areas. So this should be done for sure better, but was it realistic? Is it realistic? I'm not so sure, actually.
Agnieszka, any reflections on this?
I do have a reflection that is not technological. I think that if I were to do things again or start again 3 months ago, I think I would put more trust in other people. I think that in other people from different sectors. So this is my lesson that I have learned over the last 3 months, that what we experience, or how I feel it, between the tech sector and the NGO sector, it's a little bit like a cultural difference. And it's a different way of work or different way of approaching things. And the mistake I would not do now is to view business through the money perspective, which is very common, I think, at the NGO sector. I think I'm not unique in that aspect. That very often, if you have an NGO and a business partnership, from the perspective of the NGO, the business interest or the business quality or, I don't know, feature is financial. My discovery over these 3 months is that it is not only financial, or sometimes financial kind of moves away a little bit, because this is my discovery. It may sound very flattering now, but anyway.
So it was genuine, right?
Optimistic, but it is really my discovery that in business you find people who are motivated by passion, or like you mentioned at the beginning, that there is a common goal of in fact wanting a better world, right? And it sounds very kind of big words, but we do experience this. And
so you experience genuine support, right? Not coming from a business plan.
Likeliness in thinking, and I think that this is my discovery, that between tech and NGOs, or between business and NGOs, between banks and NGOs, we do find links and contacts with people who really think likewise. And for me, this is strange or somehow new. That I did not expect meeting with a bank that we will talk about values, and that we will talk about human rights, or we'll talk about impact. It was not my perception, and so so I think that I'm very much for this looking for partnerships, because each time you have this new partner from a completely different ground, you learn a new approach to thinking about life and reality, and you come across ideas that would not occur to you. So this is something I would change, to be really very blunt and frank in what is important to me, and expecting that other people are blunt and frank in what is important to them. And I think also what my discovery is, that struck me at a meeting with government officials and city officials last week, that where we are is in a moment that is reshaping my thinking about impact. And like you mentioned, the needs of manage or have a vision or lead organizations. It was my expectations 3 months ago, and I now find it quite funny, but still, that that I really expected ministers to lead, or the government to, you know, pave a way or give direction to myself, to the sector. I don't expect that anymore, and it's not actually critical. It's like, I think my perception has changed, and my NGO's perception has changed about our role and about how we lead the change, how we cause the change, with whom. And I think that I have completely reshaped my understanding of who is change maker and who is an actor, and where are these actors, and how to use other actors, and maybe very thinking of the state as such, as a construct, has changed also for me, that that we should not rely, or at least I don't rely so much on these super high governmental structures looking for change. I look in myself, or I look in other people that feel alike. And I think that I have underestimated the potential that we have kind of horizontally. So this is a big lesson for me.
I used to have a boss that used to say, leadership is not given, it's stolen. And I think the NGOs have shown over the last 100+ days the stolen leadership from actually people that were supposed to lead, as you mentioned, but did not. Yeah, but thank God they had you to pick up the.
Yes, and just to maybe kind of, sorry, I'm taking so much time, but it's I think it's not even I'm not criticizing. That was not my point, to criticize the government that is not taking a role. I think that this is a time where they are not as relevant as we all thought. That we have much more leverage than we expected, and I think that this is great. It's kind of, I feel like I realize finally what we can do, and it's a good feeling, I have to say.
Jen, any reflections on what would you do
Yeah,
differently?
I think building on, you know, I mentioned the tech is not necessarily being built to scale and to last, which might be the right trade-off in the short term. But I think one of the things we're always trying to do is build, you know, things that are flexible and extensible for the next crisis, so that we're ready and don't have to take the time to build something new. So a good example of this, actually, from, you know, COVID-19 was the last crisis, still is, that we're dealing with. And right at the start of COVID, one of the projects that we worked on was with a number of different nonprofits globally, what was creating global.health, which is a basically a way to track the spread of the disease, so that government officials can make, you know, decisions based on that. And in the short term, that was all we worried about. That was the most important thing. But then once the sort of acute need was over, we worked to make it flexible and extensible, so that it would work for the next infectious disease. And, you know, unfortunately, a little too soon, we had to test that out with monkeypox, but it actually did. There was no delay. The tool immediately already worked to, you know, help government officials track the spread and make decisions based on that. And so I think for us, the thing that, you know, we're always trying to do more and, you know, better is and differently, is to identify what those tools are that are going to be needed in every crisis, and try to build tools that are as flexible and extensible as possible. And I think the other thing that does is sort of contributes to, you know, a big theme in the sector is around anticipatory action, and it's so critical. And so if you can start to understand what the needs might be, you can, you know, pre-solve for them to lessen the harm. So, you know, an example in the natural disaster space, often, we give cash transfers after the fact, but the impact, if you actually give them before, could be significant. So folks, maybe don't have the money to leave their homes, and so they stay and board up the windows, but maybe, are then at risk. Whereas if you can give cash transfers ahead of time, they're, going to be able to leave their homes, and ultimately there will be less harm done. And so for us, I think, not that you would be able to do it differently if we truly just backed up 180 days, but we're always trying to think about that sort of anticipatory action and response.
Jacek, what would you do differently?
Many different things, but I don't want to steal too much time. But there's one thing I would do for sure differently. And this is a very specific insight of Tech to the Rescue, because we've helped to launch like 70, 80 different projects. And we observed that the global tech community in the parallel built like hundreds of different tools. And I think to avoid the problem of low quality of some of the tools and avoid the problem of doing same stuff many times, we should put more attention to open sourcing these tools, and for mobilizing people around supporting the tools which are promising, which are built collectively, which are transparent, instead of starting many different similar stuff which are difficult to assess in terms of their security, how they actually treat users, if there are some quality standards connected to building these products, and so on.
We have this opportunity to have so many people from google.org under this roof that I thought maybe as a wrap-up, it would be good to gather feedback or gather a wish list for google.org to consider for the future. So would you have anything to input to google.org? What as an org we can do better, differently, more in months to come or future crisis? Jacek starts.
I'll start with the positive. We have an experience of working with over 900 companies right now, and I think what Google.org does is like it really stands out. I already told it to Jen, and I think the fellowship model and how Google thinks about doing change and supporting nonprofits is unique. So the only thing I would suggest is to work together on making other companies follow the model and implement similar solutions to not increase the number of companies that are engaging in pro bono engagements on a, let's say, shallow level. So let's say we will help for 2 months and then we're off, but instead build long-lasting partnerships with nonprofits, learning how to work together, learning these cultural differences, and understanding how we might build sustainable stuff together.
Thank you. Agnieszka?
I'm thinking also about potential space for future is that an actor that is important in all our discussion are refugees themselves and their ability to use technology and their ability to be able to influence how help is delivered. So I guess that this is where we can still do more to involve people for whom we are working and hear their perspective and also hear their barriers. Because like I am myself limited in my abilities to use technology, we do work with people, maybe not from Ukraine, but with other refugees who are, for example, illiterate. And then bringing technology to an illiterate person. Maybe this is a field that is for now beyond what we can imagine we can do. But there are probably some other fields also, for example, elderly persons, which are often excluded from those services that we provide thanks to technology. So maybe we can, again, involve the people and see what they are able to do and think together, how can we make sure that we use the tools to address the groups that are not kind of our traditional users or typical tech users.
So from my perspective, I see two, let's say, not solutions, but ideas. Let's call it that way. One is that this crisis will last. So and then usually, I mean, there is crisis, but there are some new crises. So people switch off to another one. So be committed to help in the long run, long perspective, because it is something crucial. I mean, that will not be left alone at some point, or maybe you could we could work on exit strategy. Together, so to be prepared, so thinking ahead of that. So it's one way, and the other, what I learned, and I also, that we are really illiterate in technology as NGO, but also academics, and it's a fact actually. So thinking about other crises, maybe, I mean, you could think about learn some other people in some other areas to be prepared to work with you in the perspective. I mean, when the crisis hits, then you could step in, and people will be prepared and understand the language that you use, for example. So I think this is this education level for NGOs and not-profit sector, probably the governmental sector also, and for academics definitely. There is something that is very needed.
Is there a way, is there a way we can get prepared for this hardship? I'm thinking, and for this hardship and for this energy level for help that went down, just because it's a function of time, right? I remember, the first weeks, maybe even the first month, it was, we were operating on a completely different level of help, at least the general population. And now we normalize the war, and I sense that when the hardship will hit, it's gonna be almost like the flip side of what we've experienced. Do you have any ideas how, even your personal commitments, what is it that we could do to keep the help up, or the help awareness up?
May I start? I mean, I think there are, again, two things. First, is be aware that it will happen and that it's normal. And if you are prepared to something, you experience it differently and accept it indifferently. So there will be hardship, but I expect that will come. So it's not comes as a surprise. And I also could prepare myself to that financially, emotionally, on different ways. And the other thing is that you are allowed to have a normal, let's say, or semi-normal life as an activist, and you are allowed to rest. You're allowed to feel better, to feel bad, to have some moments of breakdowns, and it's okay. And it's again normal, and you shouldn't beat up yourself for that. And you can't be on your toes for like months and months. At some point you need to go to this more or less normal life, because it's the only way that you could
make it
help.
sustainable,
Yeah,
right?
and yes,
Okay.
yes.
I think professionalize. This is the answer, that just solve problems. I can imagine that in technology, when you have a system that fails, or that that will finish operating at some time, you just have to come up with a backup, or you have to come up with ways and, I don't know, program solutions to go around things that are ahead. And this is exactly what we have to do. Is we have to foresee, plan and manage and execute solutions for the problems that we know that are coming. And just waiting for them to come or talking about it, it is important, but it is not sufficient. As you said, I mean, we can debate, but it's after all about doing. So I guess that we just have to create solutions for the problems that are there, and nobody will be able to create them themselves. So these partnerships are crucial, and the resources that we have all together between our environments, but also other environments, and I don't know, government structures and academia and bunches of volunteers. I mean, what we have to do is optimize the way that we use all these resources. There has to be synergy, because the resources are scarce, and we have to, the better we are at this, the more people we are able to assist.
Thank you. Jen, final remarks.
Yeah, I'd actually echo, I think, what Witold said. I think we often think about it as like a marathon versus a sprint. And so, there are going to be periods where you need to be sprinting and, providing all-in support in whatever you can do. But it's not necessarily sustainable. And it's okay to set that expectation that sometimes it is going to be more of a marathon and thinking about how to pace and how to build these solutions that last. I'm not a runner, so the metaphor might break down. But yeah, I think setting that expectation can be really helpful. That folks don't need to, it's not sustainable to always sprint. And so thinking about when and how you can contribute the most, and when you do need to take a step back, I think is super helpful.
And Jacek to close.
I think it's easier to go through a hardship when we're together, and being together and working together requires a few different things. So I think first thing is vulnerability. So ability to say, well, we're not perfect, we have problems, we need some help. It requires an openness for working with people we maybe don't like or we don't agree 100%. It requires also a good level of communication to show the real problems, to be transparent about them, to communicate about them in a way that people can understand and feel it. So this is what I would expect us to do better. So be better at being together and be better at building stuff together.
Thank you. So to recap, if I were to recap what we talked about, it feels like that this is, we are experiencing a crisis where technology really played like a critical role in the speed of help, in the type of help. It's still, let's remember that it's not the goal, but it's just the mean to help. It feels like, would you agree that the technology has passed the test in this crisis, but it's not like A++ or whatever is the grade? It's just like, we still have some room to grow. So whatever is the next exam, we should do better. It can definitely be more inclusive. Technology can be more inclusive in providing help. It can definitely be more transparent to all the parties what it can do, starting with the leaders and the actors and all the actors that are leading the way into the humanitarian crisis help, so that they are aware what technology can do. For the future, we have to be aware that hardship is ahead, but being aware is the good starting point. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to have a breakdown, but let's remember we are training unfortunately for a marathon, not a sprint. I once heard that one of the top drivers of happiness is actually helping people. And let me close with a personal reflection. I feel that as Poles, over the last couple of months, we are a nation that's maybe tired of helping, but is happier, way happier than when we were prior February 24th. But at the same time, whenever I talk to NGOs folks, I have such a proof that this is true, that helping others makes us happier, because they are really like always the positive level of energy I'm getting from any conversation, even if they deal with the most horrible of the crisis. It is my personal big win from this. So thank you always for agreeing to talk to us, for sharing your wisdom, and for doing what you're doing, and for getting ready to continue doing what you're doing. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Agnieszka, Kosowicz, Jen Carter, Jacek Siadkowski, and Witold Klaus are my guests. And now, of course, I forgot who should I be handing it over to.
Thank you.